Okay, welcome everybody to the launch of Hidden Talent, Skilled Refugee and Migrants in the Labour Market by the Fairfield Emerging Communities Action Partnership. My name is Marie Saliba and I will be the host for today. I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which you are all connecting from today, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be joining us today. And I'm meeting on the traditional lands of the Cabral clan of the Darug Nation. So just for some housekeeping, the recording of the webinar is being recorded, just so you know. Also, we have a chat function as well, so feel free to use the chat function, but we also have a Q&A function as well. So there'll be time after the panelists speak to use the Q&A box, which is at the top right hand, and it has a question mark and 2 speech bubbles. So feel free to use that. That would be an easier way for us to track your questions. Okay. So my name is Marie Saliba. I'm from CORE Community Services and I'm the Stakeholder Engagement Manager at CORE. I work within the Multicultural Communities team, and CORE Community Services provides services to multicultural communities in the southwest Sydney. And I work within also the settlement team, providing support to new arrivals under the humanitarian stream. Now, FECAP, for those who don't know, it's a local interagency in Fairfield. Sorry, we'll just get everybody to put themselves on mute. Let's see. Okay. Yep, great. So FECAP was established, so it stands for the Fairfield Emerging Communities Action Partnership. I also convene this interagency, and FECAP was established to identify and address needs presenting to Fairfield's population of newly arrived and small and emerging communities of humanitarian, refugee and other migrant backgrounds through community development, advocacy initiatives, in order to facilitate the full participation and social inclusion of these groups. FECAP members aim to work collaboratively as service providers to maximise outcomes for new and emerging communities in the Fairfield LGA. So some of you are coming from out of, even out of New South Wales. So I guess I wanted to also let you know, if you, don't know about, I guess, Fairfield, it's known as a settlement city. Over the period of 2016 to 2019, Fairfield received over 11,000 humanitarian entrants, and that equates to around 41% of the entire New South Wales intake. But even before then, there have been streams of migrations that have come through Fairfield. So we have a long history and a lot of expertise in the area, and wonderful service providers who know the cohort really well that make up this FECAP interagency. So this takes me to the purpose of the report. So FECAP members, and specifically the Employment Working Group, wanted to get a deeper understanding of some of the barriers. We did have an understanding, but we really wanted to make sure that we had that deeper understanding of some of the barriers, and to help better inform the initiatives and projects that the Employment Working Group delivers, and to ensure they meet the need of the cohort. While also another benefit is we're able to provide further evidence in research in ways to better meet the employment outcomes as well for this cohort. The report will also, as we'll hear today, has a lot of great advice, suggestions and recommendations for different stakeholders. I'll go to the thank yous. Firstly, I'd like to thank CORE and Fairfield City Council who funded the report. Also like to thank the FECAP members who promoted the survey and to ensure that all those the survey participants, thanking them as well. Those who participated in the interviews and the volunteers. I'd like to special thanks to Jenny from CORE's media marketing team for her hard work in beautifying this report. It's my colleague Simon as well, and those members from the FECAP team who also helped with editing. And a special thank you also to Selena Chu, who I'll introduce from Humans Like Us, who put the report together with her wonderful expertise and great connections. I see the report as an encyclopedia of some great initiatives happening at the moment. So without further ado, I'd like to also introduce the panelists that we'll be hearing from today. So hi, Selena, gives us a wave. Also like to thank and at the same time welcome the panelists today who will share some really great initiatives that they're part of that are also mentioned in this report. So we've got Omer, who is an investment lending account manager with ANZ. Welcome, thank you. We have Louise from Inclusion and who is the Inclusion and Talent Manager at ANZ. Hi, Louise. Cindy, who's the chair of Bread and Butter Project. Thanks, Cindy. And we've got Yvonne, who's the CEO of Glow Up Careers. And we've got Sema, who's a mentoring coach from Kaleidoscope Mentoring Program. Thanks, Sema. Okay, so before Selena, I hand it over to Selena. We will firstly, Selena will do an overview of the report, but then we'll go to the panel discussion. We have some prepared questions for the panel, but then all the participants, all of you here joining us today, have the opportunity to put in a question in the Q&A box, or also raise your hand. So if a question comes to mind, before you forget it, we encourage you to put it in the Q&A box because there'll be time for questions. Okay, so I'd like to pass over to Selena, who will facilitate the next section and also give us a bit of background on the report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marie. And it's so nice to see everyone who's joined us today. I'd also like to pay my respects to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the land on which I stand today. It's so nice to see you. I'm so happy and excited about this report. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'll just have a little slide presentation. For bearing with me. Can everybody see that?
Yep, that's great.
Awesome. So we were very lucky that 189 people responded to the survey, which Simon put together. We found these are some of the high-level findings that 3/4 lived in Fairfield and neighbouring local government areas. They're very diverse. They're a very diverse group of people, 40 different countries of origin, about 40% from Iraq and 14% from Syria. They spoke 54 different languages at home, 37% spoke Arabic. They were across the entire age range, from 15 to 65 plus. And many of them were quite new arrivals. So 40% had only lived in Australia for less than 3 years. So out of that, we had a big data set. And so from that data set, we chose, we tried to interview, we interviewed 13 people and asked them some more in-depth questions that were kind of tailored to the information that they provided in the survey. And then we also consulted FECAP members. So this was the method. This is the data collection. And we found that the people who responded were extremely highly qualified. 80% had qualifications almost 50% with university qualifications. And they were from all walks of life. 3/4 had worked in their home countries. And you can see from this slide just the diversity of the types of jobs that people have come from. And this goes some way to explaining why this is a complex problem, because there is no one size fits all, because they're so different. All the people in this cohort are so different. So some of the specific barriers, and some of you would know the barriers that are often spoken about. So what I tried to do with this research was to think of what are the particular barriers that are for this sort of skilled cohort. And what we found was that how to find work differs from one occupation to the next. And so that information is very specialized. And so that makes it quite difficult to, you saw that there was an air traffic controller in there, that, you know, it's a very particular skill. So that's a barrier, because you just might not be able to find, as a job seeker, you just might not be able to find the people who can help you get into the occupation that you have experience in. The second one is the Australian recruitment system processes are quite peculiar compared to other countries. They're different, and there is a need to tailor applications and show the employer why you're a good match for their job. And that knowledge, some of the people we surveyed, they and interviewed didn't have a high understanding of that, I suppose. And part of that is the system that some people are stuck in, I suppose. Particularly the job active system, people on welfare, they have the mutual obligations, which means they have to send out 20 applications a month, which equates to 1 application every business day. It tends to think that it's about the volume of applications that you have to send out is the way to get a job, but that's not been very successful for a lot of people. The third barrier that we talk about in the report is that the networks of job seekers and the networks of recruiters are disconnected. Job seekers who have come from, so migrants and refugees who come from other countries, they've left behind their networks, and they come here, and the network is really important to finding a job, with a fifth of vacancies not being formally advertised, 31% being promoted through word of mouth, and 15% within businesses themselves. So if you just don't know where those jobs are, when the vacancies arise, that makes it really difficult. So this one is something that Edmund Rice Centre's recent research also highlighted, which is a systemic devaluation of overseas work experience. So this is something that can only really be solved at that employer level, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. And Amir, this is also part of Amir's story, which he'll share in our panel discussion. And the last research finding is that many people, about half of the respondents, did try and undergo further education, but unfortunately it only increased their chances of getting work slightly. So further education is not really a pathway to work. So those are the summary findings. And for the last 2 years, I've been working with a wonderful community of practitioners and organisations across different sectors, and a lot of you are here today, so thank you. There's too many of you to give a shout out to at the moment, but most of you are in the report. I've got some wonderful colleagues here to talk with me on the panel discussion. So welcome, thank you for coming today. They're going to talk to me about, it's just a sample of the initiatives, and there's a lot of initiatives going on, and part of what I wanted to achieve with this report was to connect you to each other, to tell you about each other. That's the space that Humans Like Us is working in, and I'm really excited to kind of kick off that work with this. So I'm hoping I'm still here. No, hi. I think now I'm back.
Yeah, all good.
So Amir, can I start with you? Thank you for coming today. So nice to see you. I wondered if you could share with us all a little bit about your work journey starting in Afghanistan. I heard that ever since you were a young boy, you dreamt of being a banker. So I think that's a great place to start.
Thank you so much, Selena, and everyone. I would like to thank for this great opportunity that today I'm part of this important event. Yes, you're right. So since when I was kid, so I always wanted to become a banker, and the reason was that I always liked to, the suit and boot and the tie. So that was one of the, yeah. But unfortunately, since I born in Afghanistan, there was no bank because I born in, and there was decades of war and civil war was there. So financial system was collapsed. But still, I had the hope, like one day things will change and we're going to get banks and I'll definitely work there. Which after the 9/11, so some private bank established and I got a job as a customer service. I started from branch banking and then I served in a branch banking almost 7 years. So I was customer service, branch manager, and then at the head office level, they offered me a very special training. It was just for high flyers, and the reason for that training was just to replace the expats to on the executive positions should be taken over by Afghans. So I was moved from branch to head office. I was in this high flyer training for about a year, and then I joined the executive team of the bank. So I become part of the management board, and I serve lead different teams in retail banking, corporate banking, commercial banking, institutional banking, and so my last position was I was the executive vice president and head of business development. So I was driving all the revenue segments of the bank, which unfortunately, because of the problem security issues that I had to leave Afghanistan in 2018 after working 12 and a half years with this wonderful institution in Afghanistan. So I came into Australia because the bank I used to work in Afghanistan, they were basically serving all them military forces, the international community. So there was, yeah, due to some threats, I had to leave the country and my family. So when I came into Australia, I started after I got my work permit. I started looking for jobs. So my expectation, because I came in from Afghanistan and my last job was at an executive level, so I was expecting something similar or like. So I started applying for jobs to all. So I started from the banks first. So and then I wasn't like was not getting any response, and mostly the auto system emails were coming to me, um, and then I just thought myself, let me expand my circle because I have MBA from University of Liverpool in England. I said, okay, I have a good education document, so let me try some other sectors because I always had the people management skills. So I applied for some other companies, and then because when I arrived, I was in bridging visa, although I had right to work full time. So some of the companies, they revert back to me and they said that you might need to get your PR and then you can reapply. Or some of them were saying you're overqualified. And most of them, they were just saying that you don't have local experience. So I was so disappointed and I was losing confidence. Like that's with all this years of experience, I can't just find a job. So I thought about going to TAFE to start a banking diploma just to understand and learn the banking regulation instead of just sitting all day and searching and applying. So I joined TAFE. I started banking and I made a very good connections there, good friends and with the teachers. Um, and then I heard from a friend about GTC, this great organization that they help, that they work with ANZ for hiring the refugees and asylum seekers. So I called GTC. They said, we're in Melbourne, and I called them from Sydney. So they said, we don't have any office in Sydney, but would you like to come to Melbourne? I said, no, unfortunately, because my immigration and case and everything was in Sydney. So I said, I can't. But in the meantime, I started looking for similar organization, because I didn't know about the such organizations exist. And I found some other organizations like SSI, Asylum Seeker Center, Career Seeker. And then I wasn't expecting, but I got a call from GTC after 2 months. They said, are you still looking for a job in banking? I said, yes, I do. So they said that we're expanding the program in Sydney for the first time. And then, but the role that we are offering is a kind of entry role. So would you like to take? I said, definitely yes. And then the team came into Sydney, and we gone through a training program, and then that's how I got the job at the ANZ.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I mean, it's wonderful to have a good ending to that story.
Yeah, yeah.
So much of that is so frustrating, and yes, I'm sorry to hear that. Unfortunately, that's a very, very common experience, and so good that you were able to link to Given the Chance. And that's partly why I wrote this report, because it puts that together, so people in your situation hopefully can use it as a resource to find some of those organizations that might be able to help. Thank you. That's great. So, Ahmed, can you then tell us a little bit more about the help that Brotherhood of St. Lawrence with Given the Chance gave you to navigate the recruitment process? That's one of the things I talked about as a barrier, that the recruitment process is quite strange, and CVs and those kind of interviews.
Yeah. Well, the good thing, like when the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence and GTC, they decided to come to Sydney, so they sent us a very good package of training. They said, we're gonna train you guys first, and then you'll have real interviews with ANZ, and then ANZ will decide. So I think it was me and 9 more participants. So the trainers, they came in for 2 days, and they trained us very good topics, which are usual and needed for every interview you go. So starting from the work culture, the corporate culture in Australia, and also the interview questions, and then we had this mock interview as well with ANZ, and then we had after the 2 days training, like it was around a week after that, ANZ invited us for the job interview, and out of the 10 candidates, like 2 of us were accepted for the job. But the assistance of GTC never ended just for the hiring process, but throughout the start of my job with ANZ, I had a mentor who helped me a lot, sharing his experience, and he was asking me how I'm going, and asking me about my career plan with ANZ. And in addition to that, I had someone who was experienced, who has gone through the GTC program, he was buddying with me as well. And then from time to time, the field officer at GTC was calling me, my manager, for feedback, how I'm feeling. And in general, the team and ANZ itself, like the training, and everyone is super supportive, and everyone helped me so much. So when I joined ANZ, for the first 4 months, I was a client service consultant for the ANZ share investing. And then I got a fixed contract role as a retention specialist. So I was kind of promoted to a different team. And then I worked as 8 months as a retention specialist for general insurance. And then I got another opportunity as share investing account manager. I worked like 5 months on that role, and then the role that I'm currently working is investment lending manager. So I help with the team to give loans to the client for buying and selling shares.
Sounds fun. That sounds
Yeah.
good. On the right path, I guess, and we'll circle back to how, you know, what might be next for you, hoping to regain, you know, your former role. Obviously, you're incredibly talented, so thank you for sharing
Thank you,
your
Selena.
experiences, Amir. So, Louise, I wanted to then bring you in to fill in the rest of that story. So, ANZ's program has been going for 14 years now, which is incredible. Can you tell us a bit about how that works, how it works from the employer side, and how do those different elements help someone like Amir to be able to offer his talents to someone to an employer like ANZ?
Thanks, Selena. And yeah, I always love hearing Amir's story, and it just reminds me of, you know, why programs like this are so important and how lucky we are at the bank to have people like Amir working for us. So yes, we the Given the Chance program has been running at ANZ for 14 years now. So it is a partnership with the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence. And we've hosted over 300 refugee and asylum seekers over that kind of period. And around 65% of those participants have gone on to full-time work with ANZ. So we're really lucky to have that amazing talent pipeline that, you know, quite a few, 65% of the participants stay with us. So really it's a 6 or 12-month work placement. So for refugees and asylum seekers, and they get the opportunity to really get their foot in the door of a large corporate bank, learn about the Australian work culture, and then they either have ANZ on their resume as they look for other roles, or as I said, a lot of them stay with us. So it really is a genuine talent pipeline for us. So, you know, you've heard Amir's story, and there's 300 different people that we've been able to bring on to work with us over the 14 years, and you know, we're very lucky to have that pipeline of talent that, because of our kind of mainstream, and you mentioned that, Selena, and you talk about it in the report, you know, it's really hard to get your foot in the door at somewhere like ANZ. So to be able to have that different pathways, you know, wonderful. So Amir talked a little bit about, I guess, how it works from a program perspective, but really to ensure that we are wrapping our arms around the participants. We have that 2-day training that the Brotherhood will provide to candidates. And we know, as we talked about, interviews can be really tough in corporates, and ANZ's no different. And so what we do provide ANZ staff the opportunity to use their volunteer leave to perform mock interviews. So they will do interviews as part of that training. They will do interviews with all the participants and really give them the feedback around, you know, the best way to position themselves. But often it's just giving them the confidence to look at what are their skills from their home country, and, you know, any volunteer positions and things that they've done, and how do you translate that into, you know, the role that they're applying for at the bank. So that has been a great success in terms of setting people up for success, but also really advocating for the program as well, with people kind of coming and doing that mock interviewing and then realizing, you know, the amazing kind of caliber of talent that we've got available. And then, as Amir said, once someone joins ANZ, they get buddied up with someone that's done the program before, a buddy in their own team that kind of, you know, shows them the ropes on the role, and a mentor as well. So as well as having that field officer from the Brotherhood. So they've got a large support network around them, and those people all kind of play a different role in terms of the type of support that they provide to someone when they join us.
It's such a great model, and Louise and I have done a few presentations during COVID lockdowns by Zoom, just to get the word out, because we're really trying really hard with our employer network for refugee inclusion to get that word out to more employers, to say, you know, that systemic discrimination undervaluing overseas work experience. It's actually stopping you from getting the talent that you need. And next year's going to, I think recruitment with COVID, it's changing, and people are looking for different ways to find good people to work for them. So that's the work that we're doing. So thank you for sharing. That's great. So one key element of the model is to it's also in the career seekers model and some other models, is preparing the host teams to welcome candidates, because those of us who've been lucky enough to grow up in Australia, in a peaceful country, sometimes we don't really understand what that's like, and you might want to be too polite and not ask those questions. You need a safe space to ask stupid questions, but then so that you can be confident in not saying the wrong thing and that kind of stuff. But how does that work? Louise, tell us a bit about that preparation.
Yeah, so as we discussed before, we kind of wrap our arms around the participants, but we also do that with the team and the manager that's bringing on someone, particularly if they're new to the program. So again, the Brotherhood will run a training session with the manager and the team prior to a new given the chance participant joining the team, and that training really provides insight into the refugee experience, helps build that cultural competency within the team. And although we know everyone's lived experience is different, we found that's really helped the team to build their confidence and make sure that they're having a welcoming environment for any of the given the chance participants joining the team, because really we know that if the team's not culturally safe, then the placement's not going to be successful for anyone. And like I mentioned before, the Brotherhood also have amazing field officers that meet regularly with our participants and the line managers, and they provide that extra level of support. And that can be for anything to do with performance, behavioural, any cultural issues that might come about. And I think really by having that support from for the line manager prior to someone joining their team, but also having that field officer supporting them throughout the placement, it really helps to build the confidence or stop any hesitation, I guess, that might be there from a line manager, kind of just thinking, oh, this might be a bit hard. It really kind of helps them to feel more comfort that that they're going to be supported throughout the program. And then what we find is once a line manager recruits through the Given the Chance program, then they keep coming back, and because they just see what fantastic talent they get through. So yeah, that's kind of how we set up the team and the manager to make sure they're feeling supported as well.
There's a lot of support in these models, and I've always found that it's actually like best practice in inducting anybody, really. If we all learned how to welcome people in the ways that some of these models set people up for success, you think if we just did that for everybody, we'd all be working in wonderful workplaces. So yeah, it's true. So I realized that I didn't, the report actually talks about 3 models of success. And so one is these employer-led and driven initiatives. Some employers work with, the partnerships are really important in this. And my dear colleague, Bettina Zudlarik from the University of Sydney, her research, recent research is all about partnerships and the importance of the partnership. So Louise and Amir talked about the partnership with one community organisation. I wanted to talk to Cindy. So Cindy, as the chair of the Bread and Butter Project, which is an employer, but it's actually an organisation set up to employ and provide job opportunities for refugees and asylum seekers. How do you source people to participate? And can you just talk a bit about the importance of those community partnerships that you have, because it's quite a different model to the ANZ model?
It is a different model. I mean, we're an employer of people with a refugee and asylum seeker background. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm getting a lag on my line, but is it all right? Oh, fantastic, great. Yeah, I mean, we like Louise's experience, we're employing people with of a refugee and asylum seeker background. But it is very much a twin purpose of ours to both make great artisan bread and also to train refugees and asylum seekers to be bakers. We source our people from a range of it's a network that embraces both the refugee support groups like Jesuit Refugee Service or Australia, ASRC, all the way through to the more traditional job active providers. That could be the Metro Assist, the Community Migrant Resource Centres Core, etc., who also have a job active contract. And then we're often inundated with many more applications than we're able to offer jobs for. So we typically take about 10 people an intake.
And so can you tell me a little bit about I've been to some of your graduation ceremonies, and they're wonderful. You talked about taking 10 in an intake. So again, that's a sort of a particular type of model where you take in a group of people at the one time. And at these graduation ceremonies, there's so obvious affection amongst those groups. Can you tell us a little bit about the wraparound support that Bread and Butter provides and the kind of training and upskilling in terms of moving into the wider workforce, and about the importance of doing it with a group of people?
Yeah, very much. I mean, what really resonated for me hearing Louise and Omar speak and your report to Selena is that quite often the people that come to us are quite skilled. So we deliberately try to choose people who would otherwise not get a job. But sometimes they are very skilled people. If their English is quite poor, we've had civil engineers, maths teachers, senior civil servants. They've come from, war-torn nations and they've escaped persecution, so they're often suffering from some trauma, but they're often very capable, very qualified, but just can't get a job in Australia. Lack of networks, poor English, qualifications not recognised. So that very much resonates, the experience that you related. And still they'll turn up and we're going to make sure they can pick up a bag of flour and they're happy to stand on their feet all day and they get up at 3 a.m. in the morning. A baking career is not it's pretty physical and it's a pretty tough role, and you've got to want to enjoy that sort of work. But people do. We have wonderful retention and wonderful success getting people into employment as bakers or further in the hospitality trade. So when we bring them in as 10, the benefit, and we do that twice a year on average, the benefit for us is that we can run this infrastructure, of having 100 people apply. They all do a work trial with us, like they're, from lifting the bag to standing for a day to throwing some flour and dough around. So they get a sense of, would they like this as a career? We can stand up that sort of infrastructure because we have so many coming in at once. And then we get support from Department of Skills and Employment, DESI, because we have so many coming in, where we then are able to access the Launch into Work program. And then TAFE provide free training because we have an intake of 10 as well. So we get that infrastructure becomes efficient because you can scale up. You get more support because you're of a sufficient scale. And then this is just beautiful camaraderie that happens in the group. So we have, what I think is intriguing is sometimes we have people from nations who've been warring together, right? And they come in a group and they are one group. They're humans tribe it's a very strong instinct amongst us to do that. So they tribe as being, the 2022 intake of bakers at Bread and Butter. That's instantly the hat that they wear. And they share their WhatsApp numbers and they help each other and they coach each other and they go off down the pub and play Trivial Pursuit every Thursday. And they are a group, and I think this is a lovely sense of shared endeavour, but also a little bit of competitiveness too. Like I want to cook the muffins better than you cook the muffins. There's that sense of shared experience as well, which is really lovely. And then our graduation ceremony is just full of heart. And you're very welcome to come to the next one in the new year. But it's people who who want to celebrate what they've achieved. They often live stream. They've got family members there live streaming to Syria and Iraq and Myanmar and all around the world, their experience of being presented with their qualification and a baker's cap, which they are so, so proud of, the graduating baker's cap with bread and butter on it. And so there's that wonderful, notion of being able to do that together with a group of people from all over the world, all walks of life, all levels of qualification. Some of them have never worked. Some of them have had senior executive roles. But we have done it previously. We've done it in 1s and 2s. It works well too if you provide that same wraparound. We provide ESL tutoring every week. A retired English teachers come in and give tuition in the workplace. TAFE is on the work site for the main part. We do some off-site. But there's a lot of hands-on workplace-based education and training, and they are on the table shaping bread from day one. So it's very, very embedded, training embedded in the employment experience, and they're still, delivering 5,000 loaves a week of making and delivering 5,000 loaves a week of bread. So we run a commercial operation. If you're going to Woolies, you can buy our bread at the same time as training refugees and asylum seekers to be bakers.
Thank you, Cindy. It's so wonderful. I love the Bread and Butter Project. And there's a lot of other social enterprises around the country that offer that same experience and wraparound support. And you're all in the report, I promise. Mainly the ones in Fairfield, because it was a Fairfield report, but you can go on the Humans Like Us website to see the other social enterprises working in this space around Australia. So thank you. Amir, can I actually come back to you and ask, when you were searching for work, and you talked about how it really hit your confidence, I guess it was really about that collegial thing. So as when you went into ANZ, did you meet other people on the program, and how was that experience for you?
Thank you, Serena. Yes, I actually did. So when I learned about JTC program, because when I came into Australia, I didn't know anyone. So TAFE and my classmates were the only people I knew. So I started, because when I was at TAFE, so I'm very young, talented, from different backgrounds. They were studying banking, or they just had finished the uni or the school. So I referred one of my classmates through the GTC program, and she was successful. She got a job on the same team that I started, and then later on, from the same bank that which I used to work in Afghanistan. So two of my colleagues, they came after this issues and the challenges, and they also got the secured role with ANZ, and one of them is working in Sydney, and one of them is in Melbourne. Yeah.
That's such good news. That's terrific, and that's an illustration of that importance of that network.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? And that thing that we all have our own networks, and some of that work that needs to be done is really how can we connect more of these networks to each other, and that's part of what this work is about. And indeed today, to just bring these different initiatives together. Thank you. So the network is really what I think the mentoring piece is all about. So I've got Sema from Kaleidoscope Mentoring Program joining us from Perth to talk about that initiative. I was going to ask, I said, so one of the barriers that we talk about is that how you find work in one occupation differs to other occupations. So you kind of need to know the right people. There's also research that says that it's not even the size of your network for newcomers. It's actually who is in your network that impacts on your ability to find work that matches your skills and experience and what your fields of expertise. So Sema, I know that Kaleidoscope puts a lot of effort into matching participants to mentors. And I do want to give a shout out to the other mentoring programs in Melbourne and Sydney as well. Do you find that people looking for a mentor who put their hands up for the program, do they already have a clear idea about the kind of occupation they're looking for? And so you're kind of matching, you start with the participant and then match it to a mentor. How does that work?
Yes, as the nature of the program is mainly to reconnect these newcomers with their career in Australia, they have a very clear idea about their job title that they want. However, that job title that they had back home sometimes doesn't match the job title in Australia. And then that's why for most of them, they get very frustrated, as Umar said, like look for jobs and you don't find anything, right? And then they go back to study and they leave university and don't get the jobs because they still think about the old resume, everything they have acquired back home. And it's very hard for them to let this go and say, I am in a new country, I have new opportunities, where I can go, and thinking laterally. So they come with a job title and they stick with the job title and they apply forever and get very low confident about themselves and think that the problem is about them. Is something wrong with them. And it's nothing wrong with them. It's just because they don't know the culture behind the culture of finding jobs in Australia. And then normally when they come to the program, I tell them something that shocks them all the time is you are not your job title. You are more than that. And then they get, oh my goodness, what do you mean? So as you go through the job readiness workshop a week that they have, and then they learn many things about Australia, including the career strategy in Australia. And it's a point when I ask them to go to one of the government websites and look around their own industries and the kind of occupations that they can have inside of the industry. So for them, it's a light bulb that they see, oh my goodness, I can start my career in Australia with a different job title that is the same thing that I have done forever in my life, but they don't know that is a different in that little name. And they get to know also the mentors, right? That tell them, look, with this job title, you don't get jobs in Australia because you don't call these jobs here with this job title. So they know what they want. They have this idea, but they don't know the spectrum of occupations that we have in Australia with different names that they can use their skills when they apply for the jobs.
Sarah, that's so fascinating. Can you give a concrete example, like accountant, engineer, or can you give an example of something like that?
Yes, we had a geotechnical engineer, and she was looking for a job as a GIS engineer in Australia, right? So was GIS engineer because she works with GIS. And then when I got a geologist that came to become a mentor of her, I said, you cannot find this kind of jobs in Australia because you don't have a GIS engineer, right? And also if they have mainly engineering is much easier to match, but some people coming from the finance side as well, it's very peculiar that they want that job, and it's a different one. Like the being a broker in Australia means something different, right? And being financial analyst, something is different. Or business analyst is different. So it's what they have under their belt as skills that you help them to match with a job that is not the same job title that they have back home.
Yeah, that literally is sort of like people talk about digital literacy, how to use a computer, but this is like labor market literacy, isn't it? It's really, it's a really important piece. And you don't even know what you don't know, do you? So
That's
it's
right.
it's really critical.
Yeah, and for them, like in Australia, we have the cover letter, the selection criteria. And how can you tell something about you when you don't know what they are looking for, right? So it's a mismatched situation.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So can you tell me a little bit, so then in this environment, then how do you match a mentor with a participant? How do you sort of dig through that and figure out, well, like, do you do that? Well, this is your set of skills, or here are your qualifications, and this is what might be realistic for you? How do you do that? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's a very intriguing question with a very intriguing answer, right? Normally, because Kaleidoscope, we don't have a CRM. I am the CRM, so I have to do all the algorithms by myself, and then go through all the applications and see who are matched with mentor mentee. So we have a big data with mentors. Around 400 mentors, and for each cycle we get more mentors in. So the idea is to match the industry, the profession, and the skills, but also you have the social and personal side of the person. So I interview all of them and see as my gut feeling based on how these two people will go along together based on this criteria. So, and I have been learning about this for the last 4 years, and I'm getting better and better. So nowadays, what we do is really getting there. It's not 100% most of the time. It's between 75 to 100% matching based on industry, profession, skills, and all the personality and social part of the two people together. And the main thing for me is, when I talk to mentors and mentees, when I do the induction, is you know enough as mentor to help this person. Is how you see yourself as serving this person, right? And how you can serve this person, because the mentees comes with a very high expectations, looking to the mentors as God. They know everything, right? And it's a two-way process, so that both of them are learning about themselves and about each other. So the mentees come with these high expectations, and they want the mentor to hold them, right, and their hands, and do everything for them. And it's not the point. And the mentor feel like, oh, I need to do something, but is giving that space for the mentee to act on, also to get the experience of being responsible for their own results. And the mentor just give the guidance as much as possible, but let the mentee to flourish.
It's just so fascinating, and that human piece. This is the key. I think that so much of this work is about relationships. So whether it's at that partnership level between organisations or within an organisation, Louise, you and the other employers in our employer network often speak about, like, you need the right manager to sort of, for those companies that are starting off, that critical, if you're like, we're going to start this, we'd like to welcome refugees into the workplace, you've got to have that right, that manager who has those, is a good match, I suppose, just like Sema talked about, having, it's an art, right, rather than an algorithm.
That's right.
Yeah. Louise, did you want to just make a quick comment on that piece, the importance of, I guess, the managers having a growth mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I talked a little bit about making sure that the environment was culturally safe for the person coming on board, and yeah, you're right. I mean, I think with any of these types of programs, it's got to be the right fit for everyone, and so particularly if it's, it's first time kind of running a program like that in that department, or we've just recently done some bulk recruiting for one of our areas that we're looking for. We put 10 people into a team over a couple of cohorts, and having the right managers that were really willing to work with us. And there's some speed bumps along the way sometimes, but being prepared for that and really working to make sure that the participants feel welcome, and that they're asking the right questions and they're doing it in a really empathetic way. Super important. Otherwise, yeah, it's not going to work, and it's going to be an awful experience for everyone.
Thank you. And that's right. The all of these initiatives, the reason why I've highlighted these initiatives is that they've all been designed to succeed. There's been a learning piece. A number of these kaleidoscopes based on a model from Canada that's tried and tested. I know Louise, but a lot of the other employers who've been doing it for a while, there's a lot of learning trying and testing and sort of come up with these how to avoid certain pitfalls and then how to succeed. And Bread Butter is the same. I wanted to bring Yvonne in. Speaking of the importance of relationships, Yvonne's got to be one of the most amazing, like warmest collaborators that I've ever worked with. One of the things that we talk about in the report is that need to, I guess, show that you're a good fit. So similar, so the relationship saying hire me because I'd be a good fit for your company. When I was spoken to you about this, you said this is only one aspect of the complexity of today's labour market. So can you enlighten us, tell us a little bit about what recruitment is actually like now? Look, I don't know half of this stuff because I've been a public servant for 20 years. And so I'm an expert in how you get a job in the New South Wales public service, but there's a lot that I have to learn about the rest of the labour market. Tell us what, as a job seeker, we need to be aware of when we're applying.
Absolutely. So my background is I'm a coach. We've got a coaching community called Glow Up. We've got 130 coaches who come from coaching backgrounds, but also a lot of volunteers from corporates who have a lot of heart and want to help and want to be coaches and mentors. And what we've done is connected to the reality. The job market has changed so much. So I actively recruit currently, and I sit on the board of a global recruitment network. So really kind of every day understanding what technology and the changes that are happening on the job market, and completely connect Sema to what you're saying about that it's not a straightforward process, that job titles have changed, different industries, different companies, they all call a job a very different thing. So the market is very driven currently by keyword optimization. So all of the job boards, all of the applicant tracking systems that recruiters and internal talent teams are using are all based on algorithms based on keywords. So if a resume doesn't have the correct keywords peppered all the way through that resume, it goes into a black hole, and often that resume is never seen by a human. So a lot of the work that we do is individually identifying and empowering people to understand how they can research and find that information, and understand the keywords that are being used in those organizations, and how they can really put themselves in the shoes of the hiring manager and understand what that organization is looking for, what they're going to be doing, how their skill set really matches up with that employer. And a lot of people that we coach are looking at it from their job search perspective, but not really considering the employer's perspective as to what is that employer looking for and what language do they use. So it's very much about matching the language that is in the current job ads and making sure that their cover letter, their resume, their LinkedIn profile is all telling a story about them, but that's very relatable to the person that's going to be hiring them. So yeah, it's very data driven. From when I started in recruitment, my career, it was very similar, like what you said about kind of that feel and matching. And now every part of the recruitment process is automated, and it's gone to quite an extreme level. So there's a lot of video screening tools where, again, a candidate doesn't get to talk to an individual, they get to talk to a robot. There's also, you can actually dial a phone number and speak to a robot in relation to a series of questions, and no matter how you answer that question, they'll ask you a different question based on your answer. So it's it's very confronting for candidates who aren't used to, who are expecting a personalized approach, whereas a lot of that initial part of the recruitment process is very technology driven.
Which is really quite frightening in some ways. And when we spoke about it, I said, well, do companies realize that actually this is sifting out a whole bunch of people who are from, I guess, from the marginal groups, not just refugees and migrants, but a whole bunch of marginal groups who might have difficulty navigating that tech, whether it's from because they don't have access to technology and those kinds of things. whether companies realise that this is, you know, it could be stopping them from finding talent.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, those people become invisible because they don't really, the resumes don't really exist. And they're sending, you know, if they're on Job Active, as you mentioned earlier, they're sending like 20 applications. But most of if they're not really positioning themselves for success and applying for roles that they've got a high chance to get, then they are completely invisible. And that's really what our program does, is match job seekers with individual coaches to really work on those keywords and positioning, to ensure that that person is going to be found and connected with the correct jobs. And then obviously networking is a really big part of it too, that there's so much of a hidden job market. I know in our recruitment network, a lot of the recruiters now will go to their own databases, or they'll search on LinkedIn, or they can actually search through the job boards as well to find candidates, so they don't have to pay for job ads. So that's a huge hidden market. And if refugees and migrants aren't on those platforms or aren't visible, again, there's no way that they will be found, and it's not through their own fault. It's just not understanding how that process works.
And so I wanted to circle back to Amir. So he's so senior, and it's great that he's been able to, you know, get into the job market, but he's clearly being underutilized. That's the academic way we talk about it, right? He clearly, like, senior vice president at a national bank. What advice would you give him as a career coach? What should he be kind of focusing on if he wants to move forward in his career? And he's still such a young man, because he's so modest. He didn't say that he became senior vice president before the age of 30.
Oh wow!
Amazing.
That's amazing. So look, it was amazing to hear your story, and that you've pushed through and that you had that confidence to keep going. And a lot of that job search process for anyone, whether you're refugee or migrant background, it is a very difficult process to go through to find a job. And I think we talked earlier about study. A lot of people tend to go to study as the first pathway without really understanding and talking to people in the industry. So I really like the fact, Amar, that you've sought out people that work in that industry and understood what those pathways were. And we very much work towards, it's called a values-focused thinking approach, where we get people to focus on their strengths, their passions, their values, and then set their long-term goals. So, if that's your goal to get back to that level, then what are the short, medium, and long-term steps that you need to take to get there? So I think you're doing all the right things in relation to trajectory. And I think as you build mentors and buddies and a network around you, you're setting yourself with that eye on the end goal. I think, for anyone in the career, having career goals to work towards and be doing specific things that you know that you need to do. So if you know that to get into an executive role, you have to maybe do, a company director's qualification, understanding what those specific required qualifications are and then doing them, rather than just coming to Australia and rushing straight out to get a qualification when you don't really understand what the pathway when you complete it. And it is disappointing. We see a lot of people that have come out of uni that that they then can't get a job, and they don't really understand. They feel like they've got this qualification, why can't they get a job? So we're actually working with a lot of the universities as well, with their asylum seeker and refugee programs, to help the students be prepared early, to start that networking and building their profiles and their professional overview. And for me, the confidence is a massive thing. And I know all of you have mentioned confidence. Having people here in Australia and on our 130 coaches are amazing to support and boost the confidence of refugee and migrant job seekers, to really give them that kind of push and confidence that they can learn for themselves, and they can be empowered to take the right steps to find great jobs here.
Thank you. And I was going to end the panel discussion there and open it to questions. I guess for me, the takeaway themes, and it's in the report and it came through this discussion, is the importance of community, network, and that connection with people's confidence. So empowering people, part of these the success of these initiatives is that they focus on building people's knowledge and skills and confidence to sort of make their own future. And it's so impressive. And I want to thank everyone in the audience who and on the panel who are involved in these initiatives. And next year, I guess the next steps is really to increase those connections between you and also to new employers, but also like to settlement providers, and how can we kind of all work together better. The other connection is to the recruitment industry, which is where Yvonne works. So that if we can all connect better together and work together, we'll be able to hopefully make some inroads into some of these challenges. So I'll pass back to Marie. Thank you. Thank you so much for a great conversation, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. We've had a lot of positive comments and thanking Amer for sharing his lived experience. So a lot of encouraging words for you. So yeah, I'd ask the audience, please feel free to put your hand up or use the Q&A function, which is top right hand corner. It has a question mark in there. And just before we do go to questions, I also wanted to mention Selena. I didn't properly introduce you. I was too excited to get to the panel, but Selena founded Humans Like Us in 2019 to connect people supporting refugees in their working life. So she facilitates roundtable discussions, as we can see today, and is connected to a lot of peer networks of companies and government agencies who have welcomed refugees in the workforce. So your expertise, you've brought that through in the report and today as well. And these, I guess, these programs and initiatives that we were able to talk about on the panel today are just a sample of what you've got in the report as well. So we will be sharing the report through an email, a link tomorrow with the webinar today, recording of the webinar. So we'll do it all in one go. So please look out for that in your inboxes and have a look at all these wonderful initiatives that you know, we've been touching on, who have all these 3 elements that Selena mentions in the report. Okay, so we have one question regarding the Given the Chance program. That program, is that for free, Louise or Amer?
So what happens is the business unit that hosts the participant will pay the salary of the participant, also a fee to the Brotherhood, which kind of covers all that, the training, the support network, so your field officer and things like that. So but you know, it's not an exorbitant cost. So yes, it's not free, but you're paying obviously the salary of the person that's working for you.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And Amer, we have a question for you. I think it's here. What's it? Okay, so if you had to pick a moment that mattered, that made a difference in your journey, what would that moment be?
Well, I would pick up the call that I received from GTC when they confirmed that I've been successful for the job interview with ANZ, because I know when I came into Australia, it was October 2018, so it took me 6 months for looking job and also TAFE. So that my main activity during the day was just looking for opportunities, and so yeah, that was a very good achievement. Although when I spoke first time with my manager and during the interview, they told me that, look, based on your CV, you worked in very high positions, so would you be staying with us? And so my answer was that if you climb a mountain once, second time is not hard for you. So I always believe on myself that I definitely will try my best to get up to a higher positions in the future. Yeah.
Wow, wonderful attitude. I think Yvonne would agree with me. That's important. So thank you.
Thank you.
We've got another question. What is the approximate cost to run mentoring program that ANZ is delivering? I mean, including an in-kind cost. So that's...
Yeah, look, the mentoring, the mentors that get matched with all our Given the Chance participants when they start are just using their volunteer, or it's not even really volunteer time, it's just part of their role at ANZ. So they're all volunteer mentors that will give up their time and experience and expertise. So I guess the cost of the bank is nothing, and we're giving, I think, I guess the benefit is, you know, the more mentors that we have across the organisation, again, it's a real advocacy piece, because they start to build those relationships with our participants and realise the talent that's available and the resilience and, you know, all of the wonderful things that we know that refugee and asylum seekers bring to an organisation, and that really helps to kind of sell the story and keep, you know, people coming back to recruiting through the program. So yeah, it's a benefit on all kind of levels, and I know that our mentors get so much from playing that role as well.
All right, great. No, thank you. I guess, yeah, so each time that like we have today, your programs are just a testament of how effective they are, and you just keep on building on that, and I guess there's that deep passion that comes from it, so you begin advocating for more opportunities like that.
Yeah, and look, I think the advocacy piece comes from people like Amir, who, you know, sell the program themselves. You know, we don't have to do a lot of you know, hard communicating or anything. We just share people's stories, and really they advocate for themselves. So it's it's easy for us to have people, you know, coming to us to want to utilize the program, because as soon as they meet the participants, they just, you know, they sell the program themselves.
No, that's great. Okay, are any of the programs presented today free, or they have a cost to employers? So Louise, I think you answered that one before. So Seema, if you want to talk about Kaleidoscope.
For the applicants, it's $100 fee. The $100 fee is just more the skin on the game for them, and we don't charge anything yet to get connected to the employers, because we're still receiving funds from the federal government. But you are on the way to become independent, and then we are looking for ways we can build a not-for-profit organization to deliver this program to other employers.
Okay, no, thank you. And Cindy, for the Bread and Butter project? You're on mute.
I'm sorry, I was reading the chat and didn't hear the question.
So it was a question about is the program free, or any cost to the employers or employees?
Yeah, not at all. For us, if there's employers that are looking for bakers, we will quite often pay for the baker to do a work placement for a few days, and we continue to pay their wages, and then we'll mentor them into the job, and they're often successful off the back of a work placement. They're successful in securing a job in a you know, fellow bakery.
Okay, great, thank you. And Yvonne, for Glow Up Careers.
Yeah, so for our participants, so for migrants and refugees, it's all pro bono. So we have coaches who are ongoing, available to do pro bono one-on-one coaching, and we have a whole online program developed that has templates, and it's really specific to really support that person through all of their job search journey. For our coaches, we do have an accreditation program, so there is a fee involved in it's a professional services, but we tend to find with the corporates that we work with that they can put that through their individual professional development budget. So that's $795 plus GST, which is a one-off cost. And we really want to provide that in-depth training for our coaches and give them a lived experience to coach someone in a really meaningful, impactful way towards a job outcome.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm keeping, right now I'm just looking in the Q&A box, but I will move to if there's any comments. So the last question here is, so it's for Louise, but also others. What do you believe made the difference in getting ANZ's senior leadership on board to commit to the program, but also to back it up with supporting it in practice?
Yep. I think, well, when we kicked off 14 years ago, it was actually 2 senior leaders that went to a breakfast that the Brotherhood had put on, and they heard about the program and just kind of, I think they both worked in the contact centre at that point and just went, this is something that we can really, you know, make a difference and you know, provide people the opportunity with work placements. And then it's just grown from there. We've had a really strong partnership with the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence, and we partner on a number of different programs, not just Given the Chance. And so I think having that really strong partnership as well, with, you know, we've got executive sponsors that are part of those discussions has really helped. But you know, we've got a very passionate CEO, Shane Elliott, who has provided us with a number of opportunities to expand our program, like Amir spoke about. We did a big expansion into New South Wales a couple of years ago. We've expanded into Tasmania now, and we're looking at a number of different ways that we can continue to uplift the program, and that's from funding and support from our senior executives. But again, it's that advocacy piece. We continue to tell stories, and that storytelling and sharing of people's experiences and what they bring to the organisation is really how we have everyone from, you know, from our CEO all the way kind of through the organisation with a passion, and they're really proud of the program. And so we want to keep telling those stories, because if you don't keep telling the stories, people don't know about it. But it's a real sense of pride for ANZ that you know, we've got this program and that it continues to grow, and it's only becoming bigger and bigger kind of as we progress through the years.
Great.
Can I add something, Marie? So
Sure.
if you are on the call and you are from an employer and you're looking to persuade senior leaders to jump on board with this. So I facilitate quarterly roundtables of the Employer Network for Refugee Inclusion, and it has 10, 20, 30 people as passionate as Louise, and Cindy is part of that, and Yvonne is part of that as well. So, and they all have quite different models, and a lot of those I put in the report, the more mature models I put in the report, but there are also some people who've just started in the last year, and we're trying to build, I guess, a collective, you know, a movement, and to share and learn from each other. So that's the work that I can do, and I'm really happy to advise. That's what I've been doing, like advising companies and employers how to make that business case to their senior leaders, and how to connect them to other employers who've been there before, and they can sort of share learnings.
Okay, great. Yvonne, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I just wanted to add back to that, the original question that Louise answered about the leaders. So we find a lot of the leaders that we attract have had really successful careers, and they've just got to a stage that they have a lot of heart and they really want to give back. So we can help facilitate them using their time to give or the volunteer days. And because they're very busy, they can just put their hand up to fit in with when works for them. And similar to Sema, we match them based on that real kind of industry experience, but also that kind of gut feel for, you know, who's going to get on well together, because that's really important, especially when it turns into a long-term relationship. But I think what we find is that once they have the lived experience of making an impact on someone's life, they do, as Louise said, become massive advocates internally, and they really push for change. And we're starting to do a lot of diversity hiring with the corporates that we're working with, and opening up conversations around talent pipelines, that they just have never considered this cohort as a talent pipeline. And the amount of you know, great talent that is totally untapped in this sector is just phenomenal. So yeah, I just wanted to say that to have those leaders to get as much kind of lived experience as they can and do volunteering that's really impactful for them, but has a massive impact on the person that they're supporting.
Yeah, thank you for that, sharing that. Did anyone else want to add to that? Yes, Seema.
Yes, Yvonne, we have the same experience here. Our mentors are all volunteers, and the amazing things among our mentors, we have around 90% are migrant themselves, and they are in a very high position in their organizations. And then you have also employer partners as big companies as Deloitte, Telstra, and Engineers Australia helping us. And then we have the normally as well mentors that come because they hear from others inside of their own organizations, or they hear from someone else and they come as individuals, and then by the end they bring more friends in, become more colleagues, and the organization start looking at us as a possibility also. And as we have now in WA a very it's like 2006 job market, everyone is looking for new people here, and we don't have many, so we get calls every day, emails, please, you need people, you need people, you need people. So that's why now in this last cohort that we had 41 mentees matched to mentors, 68% of them got a job within 3 months in the program. So in leaving their unemployment or underemployment to earn at least $7,000 per year. Yeah, so if they help with our mentors, so they are the big champions for us.
Great, thank you, Zema. Cindy, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I do. I would love
Yes.
to. It's sort of related to that topic, but I've been assisting Afghan career women to connect with employers here, and agree very much with the feedback that you need to help them translate their skills into something that's relevant for the Australian workplace. But what I've found is that Australian employers are so desperate for areas of job shortage, like data scientists, software engineers, cybersecurity experts, you know, or for HR, finance, like just such a range of areas that they're seeing at healthcare. You know, that they're seeing such job shortages in that. I think more and more they're recognising that the refugee talent pool is actually an asset. And if we can tap into it better than other nations can, better than other employers can, then we have a competitive advantage in a very tight international labour market for some of these roles. So I think we're shifting, our narrative can shift more to this is a way to have access to a pool that other employers and other nations are not as aware of or as good at accessing. And it's less about it still should be about helping people in need, but it's as much about accessing a talent pool, a valuable talent pool.
Great. No, thank you. Okay. I'm just going to check the time. Yeah, so we'll start wrapping up. And now, if there's any questions that we haven't been able to answer, we can respond via email. Now, if anyone from the panelists, if you feel free to share, I guess, a website or a link, if you can today, in the chat. If not, we'll make sure that we will send out, I guess, a link or a contact details. I'll follow that up with you all. Just lastly, in terms of the report, there are recommendations that we haven't really we haven't gone through today, but a lot of that we can draw out from the conversations and the richness of these programs. So we felt that this was a really good opportunity for you to get, I guess, something that you won't read in the report, something above and beyond, like these programs have, that heart, the passion. So we hope that you were able to grab that from today's discussion. But in the report themselves, there is recommendations for service providers and also for government, local, state and federal. So please have a look at that if you're from, if you're one of those stakeholders, and please reach out to CORE, to the FECAP interagency, to Selena at Humans Like Us, or some of the panelists, and have a look also at the I guess the references in the report as well. There's a lot of great programs and initiatives as part of that. So thank you once again, everybody, for the audience, for your great questions, for your participation, for the panelists, Selena as well. It's been really great. And all the partners, once again, who have been involved in the report and in the actual research leading up to report. So thanks again. Take care, everybody.
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Really nice
Thank
to
you.
meet
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.